Hi, everyone. I'm Justina Nian. I lead marketing here at ReadMe. I'm sure I've seen a few of you in our office hours or have chatted with you in our community Slack, so I appreciate you all being here today. I'm so excited to be joined by Harish, Head of Developer Experience at Socure. He has spent his career helping developers find value faster, and that's a tough thing to do. He's currently at Socure, and he's already revamped the documentation and developer workbench, cutting time to value by 30%. Prior to that, he led the developer experience roadmap and launched advertising features for a pretty small company called Walmart, powering a platform that drives billions of dollars in annual revenue. And before that, he built out Verizon's API platform from the ground up. So I'm super excited to have Harish here to talk through why he brought ReadMe along the developer experience journey at massive enterprise companies and how he and his team have used AI to build incredible docs. Awesome. So, Harish, you've seen developer experience at giant enterprise companies, really fast-moving teams, and kind of everything in between. I'd love to zoom out for a second there and talk through what do you usually see that's missing or broken when it comes to developer experience?
Yeah. So I think one fundamentally, we are in a world where APIs are super critical. And earlier, like APIs started with internal APIs, different product teams are using it, different engineering teams are using it. And then we came into this phase where APIs became a product in itself, and we started exposing them externally. But then when we are exposing this externally to both like giant companies or even let's say indie developers, I think developer experience becomes like super critical and almost like a moat, I would say, because one, fundamentally you want to have like great capabilities, but on top of that, if you have like great developer experience, you can really stand out in the crowd, and it becomes a moat, I would say, compared to your competitors. So I think that's how I see like developer experience evolve, especially for the platforms which are like more API focused. And of course, there are like other platforms which are like just developer tools outside of APIs as well. And even for those companies which are focused on dev tooling, I think it's really important. Even more important, I would say, developer experience is like super critical. And so that's how I have seen this at like multiple different like API platforms. So at like Verizon, I saw like telecom related APIs and capabilities. At Walmart, I was managing advertising APIs. At Socure, I'm looking at like identity verification and fraud detection APIs. But the theme is almost the same across different companies, which is developer experience is like super critical when they are the primary customers who are like using your capabilities.
I love that framing that you talked about where the developer experience can be your moat. And going right into that, one of the first things you and I talked about is documentation being that first touch point in your developer experience. Across the companies that you've worked at so far, what's one thing you feel like teams get wrong about docs? And what do you do to try to quickly make big improvements?
Yeah, so I think of docs as almost like your homepage for developers in some way, because one thing that I understand about developers, having been a developer in the past and constantly talking to a lot of developers, is developers don't care about a lot of marketing language and sales related content. And I think developers are very focused on how do I get value quickly in a self-serve fashion. And so hence you can have your own, let's say, company website with a lot of like marketing material, but developers want to go past that and like quickly find value, and hence like they always land on docs as the very first step in terms of understanding, okay, what are your capabilities. And so that's how I see docs become the first touch point even before they decide if they want to use your product or capabilities. They want to first evaluate, okay, show me your docs, and they're able to almost like immediately form an opinion on how is your developer experience, which is also like very critical when they're making a decision to go with you or your competitor. And then the second part is they want to understand what is the amount of effort involved if I want to get value out of it as a developer. So that's another thing that they're trying to gauge quickly is how much time is it going to take? What is the level of effort involved so that I can plan around that? And then I'll also compare as the external developer with a competitor and see who can get me to value very quickly. And so that becomes like another decision point for me. So for all of those reasons, I think docs become the primary touch point or the first touch point for developers, even before they decide to go with you or not. And of course, once they made the decision to go with you, then they start like looking at the docs in a more detailed fashion to actually get to value.
Totally. And that's how we think about docs too. Of course, at ReadMe, we talk about it all the time as docs are that UI UX of your API, and they can really ultimately help a developer not just make a decision, but accomplish a task like what you're talking about. Now, this session, we're really focused on AI features, especially scaling them at an enterprise. And AI is everywhere right now. So in this kind of part of our live session, we're going to have kind of a conversation through a demo. And we're going to talk through how Socure is actually using ReadMe's AI features in their day-to-day documentation workflow with a little bit of a show and tell. So before that, I'd love to talk through what did maintaining docs look like at Socure before you started using AI?
Yeah, definitely. So I think like before I started this whole revamp a few months ago, I think our documentation was one bare minimum, I would say. Like it had very few details to really help the developer understand, okay, all the capabilities and all the nuances of different products and APIs. So I think like first step was like just getting like a lot of like content in place. And I would say it had one in terms of like feature set, like very limited set of features in terms of discovering content. So once you have a lot of content, I think the second most critical thing is discovering content. And we had like limited capabilities, I would say, in terms of searching or AI related chat, which I'm going to show in some time. So I think the discovery was missing. And then third, there are a lot of like other cool features like out of the box that README offers, which were always like missing. Like how do we really maintain release notes, for example, or like API reference, or a lot of like other things that we can embed in our documentation. So all of those features were missing. And hence for me, README became like a really critical tool because I was able to transform the docs in a very short amount of time. If I have to build this from scratch, it would take me forever, and I wanted to move fast. Like Socure is like at a very pivotal stage, and we want to move really quickly to serve our developers. And hence it became like almost a no-brainer to go with README to get all of them out of the box.
Yeah, something that you touched on, and I'd love to pull a thread on, is that build versus buy mentality and like kind of framework. What were some requirements or criteria that you had for a docs platform when you were thinking about where to go next?
Yeah, so I think like a couple of things, as I mentioned. One, the out of the box features that are available so that I don't have to like do a lot of work in getting all of those features up and running, especially if we have like engineers who are busy with building some of our core capabilities. Getting them to focus again on docs would be a distraction from our roadmap. And hence it's like really important to have a lot of those features out of the box. And one of the things that I did in the past and constantly do is I look at like developer portals across different industries, competitors, and things like that. So I'm almost able to do like a benchmarking exercise of what are like the different like sections, and within each of those sections, what are the most important features. And so I did that benchmarking across like 30 different like developer portals. And so I was able to understand, okay, these are the features that I really care about. And I saw that README offers most of those features. So that's one important thing. I think the second important thing is you want to make it your own in some way. So ability to still have that flexibility in customizing a lot of things, which README offers. You can tweak things around, like in terms of look and feel, and also add your own features, which I'm going to show in a bit. So I think that customization to make it very personal for Socure, I think that was very critical. And then the last thing I would say is really focus on the collaboration piece of it, because I see docs as, I think there are like two approaches, right? You can take like a centralized approach where you have this giant team maintaining docs, or you can take a more decentralized approach. So in Socure's case, we took a decentralized approach where every product team is also responsible for their documentation, while the platform team is facilitating them to easily make changes. So hence collaboration is like very key, and that was very important. And README has some of those cool features with branching or making changes on the UI. And hence those were the three, I would say, out of the box features, ability to customize it, and then third, collaboration.
Awesome. Thanks for summarizing that up. You're doing my job for me. Let's show everyone your docs. And now we're getting a preview since Harish is working towards a public launch of their docs. Yeah, let's show them what you got.
Yeah, just give me 1 second while I share. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we sure can.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Justina, like our docs are not fully public yet. We do gate it, but we are in works to make it like completely public. So hence this is like our homepage. We are still like constantly iterating on it, but you can get a sense of what are the core things that we look at. And so we focus very much on not just like developers, but also like other users as well. But I would say primary persona is developers, and then secondary persona we have risk analysts, compliance officers, and few other folks who use our identity verification and fraud prevention platform. And you can see like API reference, release notes, and then we have like solutions and products. Folks can click on any of these and then get going on understanding the capability, but also like start using it. So that's like high level. I can show like some other features, but let me pause here, Justina, and see if you have any questions before I go into some of the other AI related features.
Yeah, how did you think about breaking down that information architecture so that it's easy to navigate?
Yeah, so I think we are still working on it. I would say we're not like there yet. One of the things that we do is we have a researcher who is constantly talking to developers to understand how we can improve our docs and surface them. So I think like one thing that stood out was we want to really focus on like developers and give them exactly what they want. So we were able to bring a lot of features that developers care about right at the front of it, in the top navigation, and also on the home page. And so these are like all the things that developers would care about. It's in your face, right? So it just makes it easy. So that's one important thing. And then the second important thing we we wanted the developers to easily go to was like API reference, quickly get a sense of all the important details, but also a lot of the API documentation, which is super important for them. So those are the sort of the two sections that are like really important from our research. So we wanted to surface that. The
Yeah,
other
go ahead.
that I wanted to call out was from our feedback. I think the Ask AI feature, which is also like one of the coolest features from README, we wanted to go get like users to pay more attention to it. So that's why we actually customized it a little bit, added more color so that like people are drawn to it. And then there are a lot of like other things like we added this like custom feature like copy for LLM, because like now people I think have now evolved to like not reading everything line by line, but they just want to like copy and put it in their chat GPT or one of their LLM tools. So I think like those are the three things. One is having a developer section, the API reference, and some of these features like copy for LLM and Ask AI, which are very critical for developers.
Yeah, I love that you took that user research feedback and prioritized the exact user or that exact target you're looking to speak to. So the developers, you put that right into that custom top nav. And then I took inspiration from your Ask AI button, making that branded so that it's very eye-catching. And so I really liked that while these AI features are constantly being built and there are a bunch of new features to try, Socure you made it Socure's features and something that developers can actually find and start searching for the content they need to make that first API call.
Definitely.
Cool. I know we briefly talked about how you combined customer demos into docs. And I think that philosophy is so interesting because as someone who's looking to try out Socure, a lot of folks are looking for use cases, looking for ways to understand how your product can help them. I'd love for you to show everyone how you incorporated demos into docs and talk through the thinking behind why you did that and how it makes the customer journey to drive adoption a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely, Justina. So as I mentioned, like one of the cool things about ReadMe is you can add like a lot of other components here. Like you can embed them as like an iframe or you can add links. So one of the things that we do is we have another tool called Coast, which is built for like showing demos. And so you can see like the user interface and then also you can see the JSON or API related objects. So you can actually see them next to each other, and that's what like Coast brings. But then we have like almost like a completely different URL for it. And so I thought like why not make docs like one of the primary interfaces for that. So we were able to embed some of those like demos here, as you can see. So this is like one of the features we have, which is like workforce verification. So anytime someone is onboarding an employee, Socure can actually help them verify their identity and ensure there's no fraud. So this is like one of the demos for that, where you can see there is like an open position, and as they go through the form, you can see like the docs for each of those like specific like actions that they're taking, what are the JSON payloads to trigger this step. So this is like the course demo we were able to embed. But another thing that we are also able to do is we have something called workflows. And so we are able to now embed those workflows as an iframe within docs. So even before someone is signing a contract, they want to evaluate us, they can actually get a glimpse of what that workflow could look like and what like the interface of their end user would look like. And hence like these kind of like demos and workflow previews are very critical for our users. So that's like really something like I like about ReadMe.
Yeah, that's really awesome to see it side by side there so people can understand the use case and immediately get started and to see how that works. I think that's a great example of how Docs is not just a part of the developer experience, but ultimately a part of that customer adoption and really helping people solve business challenges that they're facing.
Yeah, yeah. And that's like something that we were able to customize, right? Like another thing that we were able to customize is the API reference, like how this is structured also. Like ReadMe provides like out of the box, but we wanted like slightly different look and feel. I looked at a lot of like different API references, almost like 20, 30 ones. For me, one or two companies stood out. Like I really like how Anthropic shows some of their API references. So we want to emulate that, and we were able to customize it easily. And ReadMe team was like super helpful in helping us out with some of the custom code that we can add as well to make it like really our own sort of like API reference that we care about.
That's awesome. And it looks fantastic. And thank you for giving us a preview of that. In our last 7 minutes here, I know that Harish is sharing his screen, but I'd love to just go over a recap of what you're thinking about when it comes to actually launching your docs. How do you What's the criteria for publicly available docs? When are they launch ready?
Yeah, so we are aiming like early January to make them fully public. But one of the important things I feel we are in this like phase where we want to make our docs not only available through this like UI, but also available easily over Slack or some customer tool. So one of the great things about README is all of this information is available via an API. So we are able to now, we created our own like Slack bot that can answer questions internally if someone has a question for on README related docs. So that is like one thing. Second, we are working actively on launching this for our MCP for IDE as well. So developers today don't want to like leave their IDE. They want to get everything in their IDE. So we want to make a lot of these docs available in their IDE, like Cursor, Cloud Code, etc. So that's like another thing we are able to leverage README's API. And last thing is we want to evaluate, and we're launching like a customer support like chat bot, I would say. And so for that, like it's really important it can interface with README as well and get a lot of like content for surfacing important content for customer support chatbot. So these are some of the ways we are thinking, not just this UI, but also like outside of this, how can README provide all of this content?
Awesome. I really love that you're using README as that source of truth so that no matter where people are getting answers from, it's always from your docs. We've got 5 minutes left here, so I want to open up to the audience if you had any questions for Harish or myself about README, about docs, or just about how to get started. And feel free to type in the chat or unmute and ask a question. And if not, I've got a couple of questions from an event that I went to the other day where people were really interested in terms of what makes good docs. And so something that I was thinking through is if you were to advise someone on they're looking at their docs, there's a lot to improve, where should someone get started? What's like
Yeah,
the
so
first thing?
Yeah, so I think like fundamentally you have to really put yourself in the shoes of the external developer who's going through the docs. I think what do external developers care about? Like one, they want to understand, okay, they are trying to solve a problem or trying to build a solution. So really for them, it's important to understand, okay, what are your capabilities? First thing, are they able to see all the capabilities or solutions that you offer? So if you're able to surface, that's very critical. And without the marketing lingo, because developers hate that. So how to like really show value from your capabilities? I think the second part is how to make it easily discoverable. How can they search for it? How can they use AI? How can they navigate the docs to find the content that they're looking for? I think that's like the second important piece which makes like docs great. And then the third is, okay, once they're able to understand your capabilities, see also how they can navigate and find that right solution that fits their need. How can they quickly get value out of this? So time to value and in a self-serve fashion, can you give them like concise steps that they can achieve their objective? I think that's like super important because developers don't like the fact that they want to go to different people, ask, do a lot of back and forth. So the time to making the first API call, time to value is like very critical in a self-serve fashion. So if you look at these three principles, I think that's like what makes a good docs. So just to summarize, exposing the capabilities easily, making them discoverable, and third, time to value with like clear, concise steps.
Awesome. Thank you. In our last minute and a half here, what are you thinking about next in terms of what's on the roadmap for improving developer experience for you?
Yeah. So one of the things that, which is very critical for us is making the time to value as quicker as possible. and that will actually drive our revenue goals, that will add value to our customers. So what we're constantly doing is through, with the help from our researcher, identifying all the friction points across the entire journey and creating like this journey map for a developer, and based on that we evolve our docs around that. And second thing that we want to do is every customer has a very unique use case or a problem that they want to solve. So I think the world is heading towards, and that's what we also want to get to, is how do we take all of this material and make it very personalized for each customer to solve their unique pain point. So I think the tailored docs providing like very customized like set of information so that they're not overwhelmed with everything. I think that's like something on our roadmap that we're trying to solve for. So these are, I would say, like the two things: reduce the frictions across each of the journey, and then second is making custom tailored docs for every customer.
I love that. Thank you. We do have a question in the chat from Angelo, which is, I saw that button, the Ask AI, which you showed. Is that a standard feature on ReadMe or something you've put in as a customized feature? And how accurate is it? So I can answer the part about it being a standard feature. So Ask AI is a conversational search experience, which Harish showed. It opens up as a sidebar so that end developers can effectively chat with your docs, and it uses your docs as that source of truth. It's very accurate and it returns links. It helps people navigate and understand your API. And I will let Harish talk through his customization.
Yeah, so I think it was out of the box. We didn't have to do a lot of customization. We just wanted to make it like very prominent, I would say. So that's why we changed like the look and feel and how it's like appearing on the UI. But that's like just one of the important features for external developers. But there are like AI features for internal content writers, technical writers, product managers. So let's say if I have docs written, the internal folks can quickly use the AI feature to understand, okay, how can I improve it? And then get like recommendations. And the best thing is README can automatically also get those changes quickly into production. So you can almost see the recommendations, but also like with a click of a button, almost get those recommendations incorporated. So those are for internal, but yeah, the external, the Ask AI feature is wonderful. People use that now. And I think it's become almost like a de facto search because people are searching less and asking AI more. So I think like it's been very helpful.
Awesome. Awesome. I know we're right at time, and I think this question could be a great one to end on, which is, what are the best practices to maintain docs? When developers make code changes and something changes in the endpoint, should code base be synced up with the YAML file, or how do you keep up with the updates?
Yeah, I think that's like fundamentally like one of the toughest problems is docs are almost like considered like lagging behind your capabilities or features. So I think like it has to be like run in parallel instead of having that lagging effect. One is like having clear processes, almost like anytime someone launches a feature, docs should be made a critical part of the release cycle, I would say. So that is like one important thing. And second, like bringing ownership to different product teams, because without that ownership, they might not focus docs. It might become an afterthought. So how do you make like docs as one of the key deliverables and bring that ownership and accountability within the product teams or engineering teams? And then third, I would say, is tooling. I think we are exploring this now. There could be different tools where if let's say someone makes code changes, how can we pull that information? Or even let's say there are conversations on Slack happening, how can we pull all of that information into docs and maintaining that? So you can create like those kind of like pipelines so that we don't have to make it a part of a process, but with tooling also you can solve it. But yeah, this is like fundamentally one of the biggest things I struggle with. How do we constantly maintain docs to product features?
Well, thank you for sharing how you think about it. And that's something that we really align with, which is treating your docs as a product, and making sure that when you're pushing out new features, or you're maintaining features, you're pushing out new docs as well. I know we're a couple of minutes over, so I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this session with us, sharing your docs, and just being an incredible ReadMe customer and advocate, Harish.
Yeah, of course. I thank you for the opportunity to share all my insights, and had a wonderful time working with the ReadMe team. And I think, as I said, when I started, like, our docs were in a bad shape. Now we are at like a really good place. So thanks to ReadMe, we're able to quickly transform our docs to a great developer experience. So delighted to share my insights.
Awesome. Thanks, Harish. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.